Boys and girls, please write your first name, last name, and date at the bottom of your Scholastic News. The Story of a Speech. On August 28, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a famous speech. Today, we call it the "I Have a Dream" speech. This is its story. Please write your first name, last name, and date at the bottom of your Scholastic News. A Man with a Dream. As you read, think about why Dr. King's speech was so important. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was alive, some parts of our country had unfair, cruel laws. The laws said black children and white children weren't allowed to go to the same schools. They weren't allowed to play in the same parks. This was called segregation. Dr. King and many other people wanted to change the laws. Working for change. Dr. King worked to show people that the laws were wrong. One way he did this was by leading marches. At a march, many people walk together to show what they believe. Dr. King also gave speeches in front of large groups of people. His words gave them hope. He made people believe that the laws could be changed. He made people want to work to change them. Dr. King's dream. In 1963, Dr. King gave a speech at a big march in Washington, D.C. At first, he read from a paper with his speech on it. He had stayed up all night writing it. Then he pushed away the paper. He spoke from his heart. He talked about his dreams for the future. He talked about his dream that someday everyone would be treated equally. He said he believed that someday the world would be a better place. The crowd cheered and clapped when they heard Dr. King's words. Some people cried and hugged each other. After the speech, people all over the country watched the speech on TV. Dr. King's words inspired people. He made them want to change the unfair laws. Over time, people worked together to get the laws changed. Now, it's against the law to keep people apart because of the color of their skin. Dr. King helped people realize that they could work together to make the world better. Today, we remember Dr. King for both his powerful dreams and his wise words. By Blair Rainsford. About 250,000 people came to the march. People held hands and sang at the march. People came from all over the country to take part in the march.
Revolutions of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My fallen children, one day we're going to make them where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
Map of a march. Look at this map where the march in Washington, D.C. took place. Then answer the questions. So here's our compass rose with north, south, east, and west. And here on the map we have the Lincoln Memorial, we have the reflecting pool, and the Washington Monument. Here we have Constitution Avenue and Independence Avenue. Question 1. People started their march at the Washington Monument. Draw an X on the Washington Monument. Question 2. People walked from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial. Draw a check on the Lincoln Memorial. Question 3. Some of the people in the march walked along Constitution Avenue. Draw their path from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial along Constitution Avenue. Question 4. Other people in the march walked along Independence Avenue. Draw their path. Other people in the march walked from Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial along Independence Avenue. Draw their path. Bonus question. The Lincoln Memorial is blank of the Washington Monument. Is it to the east? Is it to the west? Or is it to the south of the Washington Monument? So if you are at Washington Monument, is the Lincoln Memorial to the east, to the west, or to the south?
Dr. King, a leader and a hero. Do you recognize this man? People all over the world know his face. They know his name. Now you will too. This is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he was an American hero. Dr. King was born in Atlanta, Georgia on January 15, 1929. That was more than 90 years ago. Here's a picture of Martin when he was 6 years old. He loved riding his bike, playing baseball, and eating ice cream. Martin's best friend was a boy who lived nearby, but that changed one day when his friend told him they couldn't play together anymore. His friend was white, and Martin was black. His friend's father didn't want the son playing with a black child. This made Martin sad and angry. He didn't understand why he couldn't play with his friend. During that time, there were laws in place in our country that kept white people and black people apart. Keeping people apart like this is called segregation. The law said that black people and white people had to go to different schools, parks, and restaurants. The schools and parks for black people were often old and run down. The schools and parks for white people had no books and better playgrounds. In some states, black and white people were not allowed to use the same water fountains and bathrooms. Buses were segregated too. When Martin was all grown up, the laws had to change. He and many other people knew these laws were unfair, but the laws made him very angry. But he was a peaceful man. He did not want to use violence to change the laws. So what did he do? Dr. King used his words. He wrote letters, newspaper articles, and even books. He wanted to persuade people to end segregation. He organized marches. He led big groups of people as they walked through streets. They all thought the laws were wrong. Other people saw these marches and began to ask themselves, are these laws really fair? Dr. King also gave speeches. He spoke in front of thousands of people. In 1963, Dr. King gave his most famous speech porch in Washington, D.C. He talked about his dreams for the future. He said he believed that someday the world would be a better place. Dr. King's words made people feel hopeful. When he spoke, the crowd cheered and clapped. Some people cried and hugged each other. They also believed the time had come for things to change. His dream helped other people dare to dream too. There were still some people who didn't want the laws to change. They were angry with Dr. King for trying to change them. They tried to hurt him and his family. That was scary. But Dr. King was brave. He didn't let those people stop him. He kept working. He knew he was doing what was right. Dr. King was a great leader. He inspired many people. He made them feel brave and strong. He made them believe that together they could make a change. It can be hard for one person to change the world on his or her own. But when thousands of people work together, they can make a big difference. And they did. It took a long time, but the laws of segregation did finally change. Dr. King's leadership and hard work helped make the world a better place. Dr. King is no longer with us. Still, people remember him and continue his good work. We celebrate him every year in January on his birthday. On this day, we take time to think about his life and what he did for our country. But you can celebrate him every day. You can spread his message of love, peace, and fairness, of treating others with kindness and respect.
Boys and girls, we are going to complete a timeline, a Dr. King timeline. We're going to read the timeline of Dr. King's life and then answer the questions. So here is the timeline. It starts at 1920 and it goes to 1970. And we have 1930, 1940, 1950, 1960. Notice all these little tick marks in between. Those represent individual years, 1921, 1922, 1923, 1924, etc. Here at 1929, that's when he was born. Down here in 1944, he started college. In 1953, he marries Coretta Scott. Down here in 1963, he makes his I Have a Dream speech. In 1964, he wins an award called the Nobel Peace Prize, and in 1968, he was killed. Question 1. In which year was he born? Was it 1920, 1929, or 1944? What happened in 1953? Find 1953 on the timeline. Was he born? Did he start college? Or did he marry Coretta Scott? Question 3. Dr. King started college in 1944, 1954, or 1964. Find those dates on the timeline and find which one he started college in. 44, 54, or 64. Question 4. Which of these happened after 1960? After 1960. Did he start college after 1960? Did he marry Coretta Scott after 1960? Or did he win the Nobel Peace Prize after 1960? Bonus question. Dr. King's first daughter, Yolanda, was born in 1955. Draw a star on that year on the timeline. So find 1955 on the timeline and draw a star to show when Yolanda was born. Don't forget to write your first name, last name, and date and hand it into the finished work bin.